The Canon R3 will be capable of 4K and 8K video without overheating in most modes and have a 45 megapixel back illuminated sensor. Fact or fiction? This and more after the intro. Thanks for tuning into The Ordinary Filmmaker. Subscribe to get notification of new videos like this one so you don't miss any news, rumors, gear reviews, or tutorials. And a big thanks to Atomos for sponsoring The Ordinary Filmmaker. I'm using the Ninja 5 external recorder for all my studio work, as it really does save me an awful lot of time in post. So if you want to speed up your projects in post, consider using my links down below to purchase your own Ninja. It also helps support the channel. And now for today's news. Now, since Canon provided the R3 development announcement, well, some have wondered if the R3 replaces the upcoming Canon R1, taking the throne from Canon's new flagship camera. Now, I don't really think so. Back in 1998, Canon introduced the EOS 3, a single lens reflex camera, and that replaced the EOS 5 at the time. Now, the EOS 3 was known for its advanced autofocus system. As Ken Rockwell said, "I realized that it has eye-controlled focus, a name which doesn't do the system justice. It really should be called mind-controlled autofocus, since you don't have to do anything to control the autofocus system other than just shoot." Despite this advanced autofocus system, it was abandoned, tossed away, thrown out with the EOS 3 when it was discontinued all the way back in 2007. It's been resurrected in the R3 though, and of course it's been made better and able to keep up with modern demands such as high frame rates of 30 frames per second. Now, as the R5 was released last year to great success, Canon has no intention of replacing the R5 with the R3. So it has people wondering, well, will the R3 replace the R1? The rumored replacement for the Canon 1DX Mark III? I don't think so. See, the EOS 1 came out in 1989, a year after the EOS 3. Now, the 1 series has remained Canon's flagship ever since. Now, the EOS 1 was released in 1989, the first digital camera in 2001, or the first digital flagship camera. Canon is very specific about how it uses numbers to indicate its camera's pedigree. The 1 series is considered top shelf, the best of the best. Their flagship line, it doesn't get any better than this. It's for their professionals, those that want the most out of their gear. Now, the larger the number goes, the less capable and more affordable a camera gets. By naming the Canon R3 with the number 3, Canon is telling us that it's not going to be the flagship camera, that a more capable camera, more capable than the R5, yes, granted, but it's going to leave room for a more advanced camera, and that's going to be called the R1. We won't see an R2 or an R4. The market isn't big enough for them to segment things that much. Now, as far as price goes, well, we don't know what it's going to be for the R3. And without a solid list of specs, it's really hard to speculate. But with a battery grip, with a battery grip built in, better weather sealing and up to 30 frames per second, and a back illuminated sensor, we could easily add $700 to the price of the R5, putting the R3 at a minimum price point, a minimum basement price point of $44.99. And I'd go as far as to suggest that the R3 will be mid-price between the current price for the 1DX Mark III of $6,500 and $3,900 for the R5. Now, some posit that the R3 will cost as much as $6,500, allowing Canon to go, well, for the moon with the R1. I really don't see anything to validate this in the current specs. More information is needed to be able to make this determination. It's just conjecture at this point. And you'll also remember last year that people speculated that the R5 would cost well north of $6,500 based on the specs. How on earth can we do 8K video, 8K RAW, 4K 120 frames per second, all these features for anything less? Well, we all know what happened there, don't we? Came out at, what, $37.99, $38.99? Now, the R3 is notably different than the R5 and the R1. It's going to be a separate model, obviously. Canon eyes this customer group as a different customer group using different use cases than either the R5 or the R1. Now, the advanced autofocus system in the EOS 3 is very powerful. Updated with today's fast processors and back illuminated sensor will make it a must-have capability for professional photographers. And I'd even say, well, for the rest of us too. I mean, anybody starting out with a DSLR or mirrorless camera for the first time, wow, that's absolutely powerful. That's enough to justify this camera over the R5. And while I believe this will be a stills camera first, I strongly believe it will offer stunning video. better than we see in the R5. 4K recording without overheating in all modes but 4K 120 is highly likely. A 45 megapixel sensor is also highly likely. Now the Alpha 1, remember, can shoot 30 frames per second and has a 50 megapixel sensor. So it can shoot 30 frames per second at 50 megapixels. Well, Canon's developing very similar technology, so if the R3 tops out at 30 frames per second, well, we can expect it to have a minimum sensor size of around 45 megapixels, although I don't think it's going to go any higher than 50. And that means that the R3 will be capable of 8K video, just like the R5 and the Alpha 1, and 8K is fast becoming a standard video capability in high-priced cameras. And with a bigger body, it will be able to shoot 8K longer. The only question is, will Canon have proper thermals to eliminate any overheating in 8K and 4K? Well, we know it's possible. We've seen videos that have taken a simple copper plate and put it underneath one of the circuit boards, attached it to the body, and we've been able to record unlimited 8K recording internally in a studio without the R5 overheating. And then of course there's the Alpha 1 with active cooling that can record 8K video for up to an hour. So it's highly likely if they want it to do it. And that's the thing, it's not if this camera is capable of doing unlimited 8K or 4K HQ, because I believe that it's going to be able to do 8K oversample 4K as well. It's, does Canon want these cameras to be able to do it without overheating? And of course, is Canon going to scrap that 30-minute record limit? Oh, I think it's kind of like, there's two things in the camera world. Canon scrapping that 30-minute record limit and Panasonic coming out with a phase detect autofocus system. I think if either one of these companies makes a change, we're all going to be speechless. All right, let's do a quick summary of the R3 features announced by Canon, and you can find these on Canon's website. The R3 will have a full-frame back illuminated sensor, giving it very fast and responsive capabilities, able to shoot up to 30 frames per second depending on the lens, with both autofocus and auto exposure. It will have eye-controlled, not eye autofocus, but eye-controlled autofocus, and as Ken Rockwell calls it, mind-controlled autofocus. And the R3 will have a 1 series capable weather sealing. But now for the really fun part, anticipating video capabilities. I do believe that the R3's video capabilities will be a step above the R5, but not in any huge way, similar to what the 1DX Mark II did with the 5D Mark IV, so 4K 60 versus 4K 30, and of course 120 frames per second and 1080 versus 720. Now the R3 will have a 45 to 50 megapixel sensor. It will be capable of 4K without overheating in all modes but 120 frames per second, and 120 frames per second due to all the effort of producing that in 4K. I can't see Canon completely eliminating the overheating, so I think they'll have something anywhere from a 15 to 30 minute record limit. But it'll have a much rapid cooldown time, so if you wait 30 minutes or so, then you'll be able to record for another 15 to 30 minutes or whatever their limit is. I do believe strongly that it will have 8K raw video recording without overheating at room temperature up to 30 frames per second. Now, the power of the system could even allow Canon to take that 8K up to 60 frames per second, but I don't really see that, not in the R3. I think if we're going to see it on the stills hybrid camera, it'll be left to the R1. Or Canon's just going to leave it out altogether, regardless of how capable it is, saying, well, go to our cinema line for that. And the same thing with the overheating too, and the record limits. Are we going to see the elimination of that 30-minute record limit? There's two things in this camera world that I think will just completely, absolutely stun us if we see it. Other than the R5 in 2020, that was a big stunning release from Canon, really just impressed a lot of us. But to see phase detect autofocus on a Panasonic camera, and to see Canon remove 30 frames per second, sorry, the 30-minute record limit on their cameras, I'd really love to see that. But this is really interesting. So the main point of this video is to show you what the R3 is capable of, to let you know that the R1 is coming, and to give you my explanation as to why the R3 is what the R3 is going to be, where it's going to be priced, what capability it's going to have, and use my analysis and opinion to project what the video capabilities are going to be like in this camera. Based on what we've seen Canon do before, based on how Canon looks at their customer base and segments their customers based on use cases, I think it makes an awful lot of sense that we're going to see these video capabilities on this camera. But what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you think I'm completely out to lunch here? That I've been on a bender all weekend long and I just had this come to me in a dream? Yeah, let me know in the comment section down below. Nikon set to release firmware updates for the Z7 and Z6 Mark I and II, Z5 and Z50. The main changes are improvements in autofocus performance for the Z7 Mark II and Z6 Mark II, the addition of voice memo function for the Z6, 7, 5, and Z, and the memory of focus position when the Z50 is turned off. And now, let's go behind the scenes. I was reviewing the YOLOBOX and how I had great expectations for this video live streaming box. Unlike a lot of other video streaming services that I'd used, or hardware or software, what really impressed me about the YOLOBOX is the ability to stick in a SIM card and be mobile anywhere in the world at any time using any camera. And literally here, you're not talking about suitcases full, multiple suitcases full of equipment. You basically just pop this onto the hot shoe of your camera like you do with the Ninja 5, plug it into your camera through an HDMI port, and with that SIM plugged in, you're ready to go live. And that is absolutely incredible. It changes everything. And I was really eager to get this. Now, I got it in December, well, several months after a lot of other channels had reviewed it. But what I saw from the other channels is they were reviewing it internally, inside, in studio. And, well, the ATEM Mini does a great job there, and the ATEM Mini with more inputs, I thought, well, you're not really showing it off. So I had plans to show it off at the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction with the Village Mirror. We were going to film something live, and I was really excited to do that. Then I was going to do New Year's, but I couldn't get it to work with the R5. Well, I could get it to work, but the aspect ratio was all off, and I couldn't get much better than around 360p. It was terrible. I thought of doing it, and I thought, no, I'm not going to do this video. I spent many, many weeks and months working with YOLO to troubleshoot it. And, we made some progress, tried firmware updates. And at the end, I was told by the person at the time that it's a limitation of hardware. You're just not going to be able to get it to work. We're going to be coming out with a YOLO, or sorry, another successor to this, and we'll let you know when that comes out. So I followed up a few times, and I didn't hear anything back, and I felt like I'd been ghosted. I really did. So in my last video, I told you about the issues that I had with the R5 and that it didn't work, but I also told you that I thought it has great potential. Well, shortly after that video was live, the company reached out to me and said, no, we haven't ghosted you. That person you've been communicating with is no longer with us. So for whatever reason, they didn't properly transfer the email address or something. I felt like I was ghosted, so I put out the information. So I talked to the company, and what they said is, Simon, we do have a workaround for that. If you have the R5 or the R6, and what you need to use is, let me scroll back up here because my teleprompter's gone crazy here. It's an HDMI pass-through or splitter. And the reason for that is due to the HDCP protocol. I'm not going to get into a lot of technical details, but the reason for the HDCP protocol is so that when we're watching on our Apple TV or other streaming service, that when we're watching that rented video or whatever it is we're watching, if we're on Prime or we're watching that video as part of our subscription, that we can't just simply record it. And that's what the HDCP protocol does. But like any of these copy protection techniques, the sad thing is they affect those of us that follow copy protection, that don't steal. And so most likely what needs to be is an update to the firmware or the hardware in that computer, or sorry, in the YOLOBOX Live, to enable it to work easily with the R5 and the R6. And that's what the HDMI splitter and pass-through does. And I've got a link to one of those in the description down below. But by plugging that in, it works like a charm. So yeah, it's too bad. I wish I had known that back then, because I had a lot of really great stuff planned. So we'll just have to wait and see. The company said that they're having a discussion right now as to whether to send me out another YOLOBOX Live with an HDMI splitter and pass-through, or just wait and send me out their successor. So I'm very eager to do this. There are a lot of scenarios where being able to film anywhere you are live is huge. And other than cellular costs, and depending on the plan you have, there are options for unlimited transmissions. Data, that's the word I'm looking for. Unlimited data. And I think that's absolutely huge, because there's sometimes I'm out and about with my camera and news comes up and I can't get to it until I get home. So to be able to set up shop wherever I am and provide that information, that coverage, I think is absolutely just very powerful. And again, we're talking about for under $1,000 here. So while you might think, okay, data could be costly on this, just imagine you're being able to do this at a price for under $1,000. And that is huge. For some people, especially those that are always mobile, that are always moving about around the world, and all they need access to is a cell signal, that's absolutely huge. Now, if your cell signal doesn't work, or if you don't have access to enough bandwidth, no problem. You can record to an SD card on the unit, so there's always that. So it gives a lot of opportunities. Now, it is limited to 1080, but for anybody that's doing any sort of live streaming, including myself, who does 4K all the time, when it comes to live streaming, pretty well everybody does 1080. The headaches of trying to do 4K just aren't worth it. So anyhow, that's it for now. If you haven't subscribed to The Ordinary Filmmaker, please go ahead and do so. And you'd also have a chance to win 2 Angelbird 128GB AV Pro MK2 V90 SD cards, along with an Angelbird dual UHS-2 card reader. Or you could also win a Ulanzi LED light package with accent lights, an underwater light, and various other flat panel lights to light your subject, or as a starter kit for someone starting their own channel. And if you really do want to help support this channel, well, please use my affiliate links to B&H and Amazon down below when you pre-order any items. You don't pay any extra, and about 2% from that purchase comes back to me to help support the channel. Or you could also consider buying the Ordinary Filmmaker baseball cap for $34.99, which can be purchased at ordinaryfilmmaker.com. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker, and thank you for waiting to the end of the video. We'll see you again soon.